think now. Let me know if that is right. We are trying something new today with 2 cameras. And so we want to make sure that this is working all right. So if you could tell me in the chat if this is working all right, if you can hear us okay. I also have a monitor over here, so I'm watching myself, which is, it's hard not to. It's hard when you're recording. Some of you will know to look into the camera and you're just looking into nothing. And it's a little dot.
It's weird. I think you're very good at it. I am not. That is one of the things I said last week. I'm like, I wish I could like post a bunch of little figures of people or something behind it, because it gives me something to look at. Just looking at a camera feels odd.
I said it's like when they filmed the Avengers movies with Thanos in it. It was just Josh Brolin with like a 3-foot like constructed thing on top of him with a picture of Thanos. Really I'm gonna get a Carson on there. I'm gonna we'll put a Chris Carson on there. It'll be great. So listen, if you've not been here before, I have actually something to talk about before we jump into questions too. If you've not been here before, this is Sunday Night Teacher Talk, and the whole reason that we created this was to create a safe space for educators to talk about what's on your mind, what's going on in your life or in your classroom. And this time of the year can be so filled, especially with anxiety, with nervousness, with feelings of excitement. And we wanted to just create this safe space for you to be able to meet with like-minded educators and kind of figure this thing out. So there's 2 things you can do, because 2 things are going to help you feel better on a Sunday. One is by getting answers. So you can drop a question in the chat. You can do it on cue or question. If you are, so that's one thing. You can also answer questions. So the other thing that makes us feel better about anything in general is by helping someone else out that's struggling. So go ahead, answer a question, and know that if you ask a question, there's a pretty good chance that there's gonna be a Pinter in there, or a Miss Gonzalez, or if Maisha's not at Office Depot right now in there, she is. All right, so not Maisha unless she's watching it from the tech aisle, like I keep telling her to do. But
she should put it on the computers like the
I told her to.
Oh, you do.
That's our kids do it. Every single place that we shop that has computers, my son and daughter go around. So at the Apple store last time, I think they had on 15 computers at one time. And because I give them extra credit, which really just means they're more likely to get like ice cream or something if they can get it on enough computers. So that's what we're here for. If you're listening to this on the podcast, please feel free. Look, if you really have a question that you want answered, I'm even going to put this out there. Shoot me a DM. Shoot us an email. If you are only able to catch this on the podcast, this is also available everywhere podcasts are happening. Send it to us, because I want to be able to make sure that you're getting, just because the time doesn't work for you, I don't want that to get in the way the answer's not coming to you. So before we jump in, someone emailed me, or someone commented, I think, we put out a new video yesterday, this new teacher summer to-do list. And even if you're not a brand new teacher, it is worth getting the resource for it, right? It's completely for free. You just go under, I should have pulled up the link. There's a link under yesterday's video. Someone said that they asked their school like several weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, for like curriculum, more information. And the school's answer was, we operate on a last minute schedule. That's fine. I understand that. I don't condone it, but I understand it. However, that sounded really judgy. Anyway, I'm battling in my head.
It just makes it difficult when you operate on a last minute schedule
for
other people.
But the teacher then felt bad and said, I know I should chill out more. And I just thought, you shouldn't chill out more. So here is a bit of advice if you have contacted someone in leadership at your school and you've not gotten an answer back and it's been a while, right? I just wanted to share this real quick, what I do, because I feel like this is going to benefit people, and not everyone always knows how to deal with this. And this is how I get this answer, whether I'm dealing with a business, whether I'm dealing with a school that I'm going to go work for, like go speak at or something like that. I haven't heard back. This isn't like just a tactic. I'm not trying to just get what I want, but I'm trying to meet people where they are, but still get the answers that I am looking for. So I always will just email, always, never call, never stop into the office. Why? Because emails remind people of how long ago things were, right? So you're not just documenting things. But when I had an email today from a company I was answering, I didn't realize that they emailed us 3 days ago. Our Real Rapid Reynolds policy is 48 hours. If you're dealing with a business, you have to email them back within 48 hours. It had been 3 days, and I didn't realize it until I saw it said 3 days at the top. So it's a good reminder to people like, oh snap, it has been 10 days or 7 days or 2 weeks since I have contacted this individual. And then it's, hey, hope everything's going well. I never acknowledge that they're busy. Hope everything's, so you don't say something like, I know you're busy, but instead, hope everything's going well and that the summer has been a rejuvenating one for you. I'm following up about the questions I had on my last email. If there's anything you might need from me, please let me know. I hope that you have a great week or weekend or whatever. Talk to you soon, Reynolds. It's just a simple reminder. And the way I learned that was, I forget what company we worked with. I want to say it was Verizon.
No, I don't think it was Verizon. It was like Storybird or something like that.
But they had such a great way
it was
of
really
touching
kind.
back where you just felt like you were gently reminded without any frustration.
Remember what they said? They said, just putting this back up at the top of your inbox, like for you to see, just to note that it's there, that I'm still waiting, kind of a thing. But it was just so polite and like kind.
It was so well done.
I've definitely taken that one and said to people like, oh, just popping this back up at the top of your inbox.
Anyway, I know somebody needs that this week, and so there you have it. You're ready. Let's hit some questions.
All right, our first question is from Zoe. Do you teach till the end of the year, or do you mix it up in the last weeks?
Teach to the very end. And so here's why. So, well, actually, let me explain that a little bit, Zoe. In the past, typically, what our school has done is we teach till like maybe, let's just call it end of May, right? And we teach till the last day of May. Then the first week of June is our finals. And then when finals are done, school's done. So I understand that some folks have finals, have grades due, and they still have like a week of school with kids, which is just, that's something that you need to go speak to your school leadership about, because it is a poor planning situation, and it just creates, there's nothing to care about. So the reason I teach to the end of May, so I'll go to like third week of May, full teaching, last week of May, review for the final, first week of June, only taking finals, that's it. So, because I think that I'm not here to show movies. I'm not here to just play games at the end of the year. I love playing games. I love showing movies, but they have to be for a purpose, and that purpose is not babysitting. And I don't need to do any more team building activities at the end of the year. This is my personal view. So if you do something slightly different than this, that's cool. But that's kind of how I roll with that sort of situation. And I realize that there are other people that have good reason for what they're doing, but that's just how I kind of choose to do stuff. I can keep, as long as they're great, and look, some of this is just kind of going off of like how kids have been trained already, but when kids know grades are at stake, they're far more apt to have less behavioral issues, because we are still doing meaningful work. And so I'm trying to squeeze all the meaningful work out of the year that I can.
All right, we're going to do it our next question, but I'm going to try
we're going to switch to the other camera?
Yeah,
Let's
we're going to
do
give it a whirl.
Get fancy.
All right, our next
that looks
question.
So much nicer this week.
It does. It's because we switched to gray curtains instead of white.
Yes.
Carl's up next asking, when you started your channel, did you get permission from your school? In the UK, there is nothing like what I wanted until I came across you, and I am thinking of doing one.
So, Carl, to my knowledge, I'm the only person that does it this way. I don't know that anyone else is that, or just make sure that that's not muted.
It's muted, but I don't know if
I think we're good. If I'm muted somehow, please let me know. But Carl, when I started doing it, I didn't think it was going to do anything. So my school knew about it, but they didn't know what to make of it either. There were like 5 people watching my channel. And so, actually not true. I had this, if you go back to the OG video, the first video I ever published was how to make a concrete pot. And I was just doing it as an experiment because I made concrete pots with my students. It's a whole nother story. But that remains one of the largest videos ever on the channel. Has nothing to do with anything else that we do on the channel. It was me making a clay pot in my wood shop. And so, or a concrete pot. So the thing that shifted was once we started to grow, I made an agreement with my administration that, look, every single student whose face is online, and so I say face because if I had like a kid's hand, as long as it wasn't noticeable, if a kid had like a hand tattoo or some kind of birthmark or something that was going to be very evident that it was that student, I didn't want to have any telltale signs. But if it was just a kid like writing a paragraph or building something with some Legos or something like that, that's fine. But it was letting parents know that your child has the potential to be on YouTube. Would you mind? Here's what I'm about. Here's why I do it. And I make it very clear that I make money from this. So even before it was like very much money at all, when it was very, very little money, it was like, and we're talking like a few dollars a month, I still wanted them to know, because I didn't want this to sneak up on me that I was making money on the backs of children. And so, and I wanted parents to know why I was doing it, right? I wanted folks to know that I was trying to help fellow teachers out. I was trying to give an authentic glimpse as to what it might look like to work in like so-called inner city schools, and give my students a voice, give them a platform to share their thoughts, their feelings, their ideas, their jokes, whatever, and give them a place to share some of that story. So I wanted parents to know that. And then over time, as it grew, the only other stipulation was if I ever did a brand deal, and I just made this rule myself, the school didn't have to come to me about this, was that if I do any brand deals, unless a student is getting paid, I don't do it. And I've never had a student, nothing that I've ever tried to incorporate students with as a brand deal has ever paid out. Brand deal meaning I'm working with different brands. They are paying me a sum of money to promote a product of theirs that I believe in. And so that was an agreement that I never had to make with anyone. I just made it with myself because I knew that I didn't want to blur that line. All things with students to just be like different than that. So that's where we're at.
I think for that also, it's good to note, like, you did tell them that it was monetized, but we never said like how much money, like whether it was in the beginning where we made a smaller amount or it grew. We never talked, we just said that it was monetized. We just left it very simple.
And I mean, I want to share the mic with you. And I'm interested to hear how you will say this. What was the reaction from parents that I even had a YouTube channel?
Oh, they loved it. They loved it because they got to like see their kid in a way that how they behave or what they say or do or think or feel when the parent isn't around. So they always loved it.
I had a student, Danzler.
I would love to see my kids in their classroom with their peers, with the teacher. Like, I would love it. Like,
do you remember
I would
Danzler's
not
mom said to me about that?
Oh yeah.
She pulled me aside at Dock Street.
It's one of my favorite comments.
She said, your Instagram in particular, YouTube she said, your Instagram feed is my favorite Instagram feed to follow. And I said, why? And this is like, we were at a pub in Philly, Dock Street Tavern, rest in peace. And we were like a couple beers in. Miss Danzler just lives in the neighborhood, walks around the corner. Mr. Reynolds, oh, hey, everybody. She goes, Reynolds, can I talk to you real quick? I said, yeah. She goes, your Instagram feed is my favorite to follow. I said, why? She said, because our boys have to grow up so quickly and have to walk the streets with such serious faces that it's just nice to see them smiling. It's just nice to see them with their friends. It's just nice to see them happy. And in school, you could see students, a lot of you that live in tougher neighborhoods where kids have to have sort of have a mask on while they're walking to school. When they come into school, they are much different children much of the time. They're far more playful and silly, and being able to capture that, this is Mrs. Danzler was saying, was like a gift to be able to watch. And so I think when we think about things like that, it could be really impactful for your school to have a YouTube channel, even if it was not shared publicly, like with the world, and it was only like with folks in your community, could be a really big deal.
Absolutely. Okay, our next question is coming from Summer Hayward asking, what does the first week of school look like in high school? How do you build relationships / set expectations and procedures? Nervous about moving from middle school to high school, also moving to 90-minute classes.
So, Summer, first of all, thank you for being here. Your OG name I see in there all the time too. So, I don't think it's much different. Here's where I think teachers can make the biggest difference. And I have a video coming out about this soon. So this is one part of it. When I create the first week of school, right? So the first week of school is very, very similar in most schools. So the school I came from, the guy who was in charge of the school for years would bring the freshmen down the first day. So what we did was, and this is a great model if anyone's looking for one, freshman, 9th grade comes back on a Monday. On Tuesday, only sophomores come back. On Wednesday, only juniors come back. On Thursday, only seniors come back. And on Friday, everybody comes back. The brilliance in this is that 9th graders are capable or able to navigate the hallways without all the other students being there and having it be intimidating. They can find their classes, they can figure out their schedules, they can talk to their teachers. We can just focus on new 9th grade students because those of us that have built relationships, that's hundreds, if not thousands of other students in your school that you have created a real relationship with that are excited to see you after not seeing you all summer. So when the 9th graders come back, they immediately go down into our dining hall, and the former CEO that was there when I started was real into like this scared straight idea of we are going to terrify students. This is no nonsense. We're not playing around that whole situation. Then they would go to their first classes and we were told to talk about our syllabus and the rules and all the stuff. I looked at that and I realized that I was going to do the complete opposite of what everyone was going to do. Not that I'm not going to do the things I was asked to do. I'm still going to go over them. I still went over the rules the first day. But I let kids, actually, that's not true. I did the second day. But everyone that watches my channel knows I only have one rule in my classroom. It's give respect, get respect, meaning I give you respect and then I expect that in return. And that's it, because I don't have to teach you how to navigate the world. You should already know. You're 14 years old. And so what I did instead was the first thing I start things off with, when kids finally find a seat, you come in, sit wherever you want, and the first thing I want you to know is this, that my name is CJ Reynolds. I am a 9th grade literature teacher here at this school for this many years, and I want you to know that I love my job. And I tell kids that this might seem self-evident, like no duh, you love your job. But how many people do you know that love their job? One, in any job, right? Two, how many teachers do you know that you love your job, that love their jobs? And so that really, and I'm not trying to put anyone on blast, but there are a fair amount of teachers out there that do not like teaching, that are tired of the system, that hate the kids, that, we know those folks. And I'm not talking about folks that are just struggling, that's been a hard couple of years for. I'm talking about folks that just don't like this. And so all I'm saying is, I'm not saying anything about anyone else. I'm letting you know I love my job. And I am so excited that you're here. You, not the kid next to you, the kid that doesn't think anyone sees them, the kid that has never figured out school, the kid that has a really hard time staying in their seat and behaving. And I like you for exactly the way that you are right now. I have no expectations on you. And that right there is going to think about the other 7 to 8 periods that a high schooler has during the year or during that day, where they were told rules, they were told, read through syllabus or syllabi, like the really long ones. It's this for 7 or 8 periods, they were so excited to come to school that day, and because we're going to start high school. And then it was just like, here's all the things you're not going to do. Here's how much it's going to suck. And then I then have a quick slideshow. I used to think about making a movie trailer, and I really should have done that, but I never did it because I get too busy in the summer. But having something that is like, here's pictures of trips you're going to take, here's places that we're going to go, here's things that we're going to do, here's books that we're going to read, here's the experiments that we're going to have, like all the cool stuff that we're going to do. And Then I let kids know things like you can eat in my room if you want to. Starting next week on Monday, when you come back, you can eat in my classroom. Just have to get it passed from me ahead of time. I let them know that kind of stuff. But I want you to leave excited. I want you to leave like you are like, man, that was great. Like I'm excited to see it, like how weird this dude is on Monday, and so we can get into it. So that's how I kind of set the tone on just the first day, because I just want to lead with excitement. I'm not trying to scare kids. I'm not trying to get them in their place and let them know who I am. When they tell you don't smile till Christmas, I don't smile. I smile before you even walk into my classroom the first day, because I want to lead with love is what I'm going for. So that's kind of how I start the beginning of the school year.
I love that. All right, our next question comes.
We're gonna get through like 4 questions today with these.
No, we're gonna get through. I know. Speed it up. All right, Aaron's up next. What are the essentials for classroom setup? There are a lot of setup videos on YouTube now.
So
there are.
That's a
lot
great.
of teacher YouTubers.
That's a good topic for a whole video.
All right.
This video brought to you by Aaron Perry. So, Aaron, I would say that essentials are this: making sure, and this is in my new resource too. Like, and I'm not getting paid for this; it's free. So, if you go in the video that we just made, there's a new teacher to-do list, and there's a number of things on there that are going to help you really. I think it's like 18 things that are like must-dos before the school year starts. And even if you're not brand new, some of these you might not have heard of before, and they're going to put you in the know. I think with regards to classrooms, it is one, making sure that you have enough desks. So one, making sure you have enough of anything, right? So do you have a desk? Do you have a chair for your desk, right? This sounds like a no-brainer, but some schools, like my school, your stuff would just disappear. That's why I spray paint, literally, not with a marker. I don't write it with a pen or put a piece of tape on the back of a chair. I spray paint my name with a stencil that says Reynolds, spray paint it on there, and then it's on there, and I've never gotten in trouble for it. I find my largest class, I count how many desks I'm going to need for that largest class, and then I get rid of all the other desks. I get rid of all the extra furniture that I don't want in my classroom, because maybe you're taking over a classroom for someone that like just never got rid of anything. And I don't want my classroom to look like a yard sale. So get rid of as much stuff as possible. And then it's just like Step Brothers, right? You're like, there's so much more room for activities. And so you're going to create this space that is filled with possibility instead. The next thing that I want to do is figure out when I go through a basic flow. When students come into my room, where and how do they get what they need? And I want that place to be as close to the door as possible without stopping traffic. I then want to realize, where do kids turn things in? And that is another thing. And then it is making sure that I have any tech that I might need. So like if you're using a projector, if you have a smart board, if you have whatever it is, do you have the remote? Does the remote have batteries? Does everything work? Is everything hooked up to the internet if it needs to be hooked up to the internet? So walking through and making sure those essentials are there. Because then even if you have nothing else, you can meet the bare basics or bare minimum of a classroom and what is needed on those first couple of days with that. The other things that I really like to introduce into a classroom are, I want my classroom to look and feel like a place where students want to be. So what does that look like? I am mindful about my lights. So we're not even getting into buying anything yet. We didn't buy one thing. What do your lights look like? So I have these big giant windows I had on the outside of my classroom. And so I would just keep my lights off, or I would just have spotlights on. I wouldn't have the big glaring room lights on. Those were horrible. So.
Oh, you want to know what I saw online that was
I do.
New? They took their fluorescent lights that every classroom has, and it was like these like blue lights. It looked blue on the video, but I don't know if it was really blue, but it was intentionally to like dim the wattage of them to make the same thing that you're talking about, like less severe, less kind of like aggressive lights.
And especially if you're
that costs
teaching students
money, but
that have ED, that have certain things in their IEPs.
Oh, because
that might
these
be
lights,
something.
like what we use for recording
It's
and all this,
aggressive.
it is very aggressive.
It's when we're done. Don't you feel
Yeah,
like
I feel
you're
like blinded.
oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh,
ah.
let's go in the dark living room.
Yeah.
Turn no lights on. The other thing, the first thing you're going to spend money on though is smell. Right? Get some Glade plugins and put. I have 2 of them in my classroom at any given time because I teach teenage boys. So that means there is a large amount of funk in the classroom, and not like George Clinton. It is, oh man, it's like we're still figuring out deodorant in this life. So that, and then for me, it is beyond decor. It's looking at what students need and what do I want to draw their attention to. So I like having books in my room. I like displaying them in a way that's attractive. I want kids to go over and say, what is that book? What are these floating bookshelves? Why are these things lit this certain way? There are bookshelves I had in my room, ledges with like this week's books on them, where kids might come in and see something new that I ordered, something new that I pulled off the shelf that they had not seen before. Thinking about needs of my students, like, do I need stand-up desks? Do I need sit-down desks? Do I need a couch? Do I need a chair? Do I need, like, what do I need to meet the learning needs, the specific learning needs of different children, that things that might not show up on IEP. And so I can start looking for building those things. And then the last thing I really consider, and this is a nice to have if you can do it, I don't use any classic kind of like classroom decor. I do not think kids ever look at it. I don't think anyone's ever learned what a compound sentence is because you had a really nice compound sentence poster. And maybe I'm wrong. So like for all of you out there with the compound sentence poster, go rock that if you got it. I would rather, I'd rather introduce wonder into my classroom, which is why I have things like flying books and the tree that I had in there and all the other kind of weird crap that I have in my classroom, is because I want to really instill a sense of wonder in my classroom. So that's my beginning of the year.
But I think to just piggyback off of classroom decor stuff, I think that if you add in, I think teachers mostly focus on like the content posters, like, and those like rules and that kind of stuff. I think, what about you that you can bring in to share with your students so they learn a little bit about you as you're trying to learn about them? It helps like build that relationship, and it gives a talking point piece and a connection piece. If a kid sees something that like, oh, you like that movie, or, and then it can be loosely connected to your subject area too. Because I imagine, you know, you love your subject area for a reason.
Well, like I had a Batman poster in my room because Batman was the first comic that I ever read, and that's what got me into reading. And then I had some of my favorite books of all time in framed posters, or I had posters that were framed for just as a conversation piece to show kids. I wanted to fill my room with this sense that like, man, this guy loves reading. This guy loves learning and growing, and that was important to me.
A few people said in the comments, John Lopez mentioned that you can get, instead of changing like the light bulbs for lights, if they have like the panel, the clear panel that goes over top of it, you can get different shaded ones that could help. And then someone else said, Carl Hill said that you can even get LED panels that look like sky with clouds that move across the panels. That would be spectacular if you could get that. That might actually, kids with ADHD are going to be like, I mean, I even would with that.
We have stories about that. But if someone has it, I'd love to know, like, drop the link or send it to us.
That sounds awesome.
I would love to see what that even looks like. That sounds remarkable.
All right, Piano Boy is up next, asking, Reynolds, what have you done this summer? Also, what advice and how would your advice shift from a first-year teacher to a fourth-year teacher on how to level up in a new school this year?
So, my man, I don't know if you saw my message on LinkedIn also, buddy. I didn't see, I don't go on LinkedIn very often. It's usually just spam that I get. And he was in Philly and I missed him.
Like, and we could have saw him and
hung out, played piano together. So, so that was a missed opportunity.
Does he really play piano?
I don't know. His name's Piano Boy. Of course he does. So, it's like I rap, you know what I mean? So, gonna perform together. So, first of all, what have I done this summer? Bro, I've worked this summer. And that's it. I have not given my children a very good summer thus far, partially because we're working for ourselves now. So we gotta, like, if we're not making money, then I don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. And so it's trying to
We're building a
figure-
lot of stuff on the back end,
Yeah.
which doesn't look like we're busy online, but we really
we are crazy busy. So, but that's coming. I'm working some stuff out. We're trying to make plans now of what to do with our kids. So with regards to leveling up, I think, gosh, there's so much to say there. But here's how I figure it out. I am huge on tracking myself, on seeing where did I do well, what didn't I do well. So in the beginning of the year, I always have goals, and then at the middle of the year or quarterly, I'll look at those goals. Even now in my personal life, I look at those goals every month. So I track myself every month. I want to see how consistent I was with things, how fast did I get my grading back, where were my students as a total in a class, how were we testing, what was homework turn-in like, and things of that nature. So if I'm tracking that for a month, and I can have that data, which I just do on Google spreadsheets, and like I said, I do this in my regular life too, with all kinds of stuff. I then have a sense of where I am. Then I can figure out a doable goal the next month. So let's say you have a really poor, like you're at 10% for a homework turn-in, right? So you're at a school where like kids are just not caring about homework. Can I get that to 15%? So I look for certain students, I look for certain opportunities, I look for ways in which I'm going to help. What can I do to help increase the rate of students that are turning in homework, and not just turning it in, but like caring about it. And if I can do that, then the following month, can I scale that again? So what I'm looking at is I am not just feeling it out. I am very, very clear as to what do I want to measure, and then how am I going to measure it, and then how am I going to check that documentation at the end of the quarter or the month or whatever it is. What can you be leveling up? I think the other thing is, I think year 4 for me, trying to think of year 4. We just talked about year 4 last night. That was Colleen's class.
Oh.
And so year 4 was the first time without a whole lot of pushing kids to try hard, to show up, to give it their all, to think outside the box. That just started happening. So there's a student, Colleen, who I still connected with today, was a student that her and her friend Sabrina were working on a project together for my class. I got to school early. I mean, like I used to show up at least 6:30. I had a trailer in the back of the school. Mr. Newman was in the trailer that was connected with mine, and we had the same key. I walk into my room, and Colleen and Sabrina are sitting in my room. So there was like this little breezeway that went between the trailers, so they weren't completely alone. Mr. Newman and his students were on the other side, but they were in my room already. So what are y'all doing in here? He said, well, you told us to like, if we really wanted to go all in on this project, we could, but we were gonna have to like think outside the box. So we decided to come. We can't meet after school because we have jobs. We came in before school. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And then later that year, I get this, I talk about this in my book too. The time that there was a lumber delivery to the school, I got called to the office and was told that there's a lumber delivery here for me. And the principal was like, what is this? What the hell are you doing having a lumber delivery during school? And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I go back to my class and I go, hey, does anyone know anything about this lumber delivery? And Anna Gonzalez's brother raises his hand. Oh yeah, Mr. Reynolds, that was us. That's for our Romeo and Juliet project. You said think outside the box. So we had a lumber delivery and we're going to build this thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, what? So that was the first year that those sorts of things started to happen. And what I learned in that year is a couple of things. One, when you pour gasoline on a fire, expect it to catch, right? So like, don't be all surprised when it starts happening, because with that energy you're bringing to school is going to explode. The second thing is not everyone else around you is going to like that. So it's really important to invite people into your awesome. Invite teachers in to be a part of what you're doing. If you're doing something cool, if you're doing something fun, if you have a guest coming in, invite people into that, because then they don't feel excluded. And we want to build that community. The kids come and go. The teachers are there, maybe, not as often right now, but that's a far more long-term relationship you're potentially going to have with the teacher. So inviting them into your awesome. So that's just a couple ideas I have about that. That I would go with.
All right, Jocko. I love that name. I think that's right.
The whole name is awesome.
I know, I can't say it all, so we're gonna go with just the first. Is asking Reynolds, how do you keep the balance between wanting to be the cool and favorite teacher, but also managing being strict? I recently got promoted to head of discipline on top of my normal classes.
So this is a great question, man. I think that one, it's remembering, why do I want to be that teacher, right? So like, I never try to be cool. I really don't. I do try to be funny. I try to be silly. I try to be caring. I try to be myself, and I say this with all honesty, any swagger that I have is literally comes from my students. It is like kids dogging you about something, and I don't just listen to me getting dogged, right? Like, I don't care what you think. But if you're like, yo, Ron, those sneakers gotta go, and I'm like, all right, yo, well, what would you get as a grown up? And they're like, you should get these kicks. So sometimes they'll tell me to get like Jordans. I can't pull off Jordans. I've tried them on. I look ridiculous. I look like I look like a midlife crisis.
Do you remember the time someone was like, yo, Reynolds, let me dress you?
Yeah, oh yeah, they did for Donovan's wedding. Remember that crew of dudes put together a lookbook for me, because they were like, this group of students are real into fashion. They found out I was going to a wedding, and they were like, is it a black wedding? This is what I asked. Is it a black wedding? I said, well, yeah, the couple are black. I said, and they're like, are there going to be any white people there? I go, I don't know. They're like, it's a black wedding. We need to dress you accordingly. Bro, what are you even talking about? I don't even know what we're having a conversation with about right anymore. So so when I think about that, any kind of like swagger or coolness, it all comes from my students. That being said, I get it all the time where you thought we were cool, right? Reynolds, I thought we were cool because someone does something foolish. We had a really great relationship, but then I call them on that stuff. And my answer is always this: I don't even care how you think about me. I don't care how you feel about me. I want you to know more than anything that your success is my primary concern. It's the only thing I care about. I care more about you winning and having the life that you dream of than I care about you caring about me. Because if I put me first, I'm not even doing my job, right? This job, education, is only ever about the students, right? We used to sell a shirt that said that on there. And because education is only ever about the students, if I put me first, what you think about me, or whether you think I'm cool, or whether I'm your favorite, or whether you thought we were friends, I cannot put that first. I have to put your success first. And there's not a kid in the world that's going to long term, maybe in the moment they'll argue that with you. No one long term is going to argue that with you. That is when you show kids that what I'm doing is for you. What kind of friend, and even if we're using that language, what kind of friend would let you get away with that? Would let you act out of pocket? Would let you do something like that? No one worth hanging out with. If my friends call me on my stuff, my wife all the time calls me on my stuff, right? It's something that we're able to do with one another and keep it real. And so you'll find that your students will appreciate that more than anything. But I also don't let you steal my joy. I don't let you see that you get me mad. I own my stuff. And so, so it's having conversations with students that show that level of care, that level of love, that you're focused, you're clear on your why, then try and argue with me about you were acting up in civics class and I had to call you on it and you thought we were cool, but then we have that conversation, it changes everything.
All right, our next question is coming from Shayna asking, the high school that I teach at hired a new principal and a new special ed department head. Will be implementing some new ideas. What is the best way to adapt to all of these changes? I'm trying not to stress.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I was trying to listen to you, but the dog's walking behind us now.
Or no, and he's
And it was
scratching.
making me nervous.
There's so much stuff going on.
That was making me, I was like, something's gonna fall down. And
Do you need to read it again?
so please, I apologize, Shayna. I blame it on
the high
Bailey.
school that I teach at hired a new principal, and our new special ed department head will be implementing some new ideas. What is the best way to adapt to all the new changes? I'm trying not to stress.
So, to me, gosh, this is such a good question. We had 6 principals in 3 years in West Philly, and almost as many heads of special education. And those folks all came with different levels of caring and a focus on what they cared about. So some of those educators were all about the kids, but in a way that was very clear to us. We don't care about you or whether you're happy or whether you like doing this stuff. We're focused on student success. To which I wonder, how can we have successful people? That's like running a restaurant where you only care about your customers and your staff get dumped on all the time. Like we're the ones directly relating with those young people. So if we're not happy or we don't feel cared for, or like how are you going to have happy students or successful students? It's a poor model. Other administrators that we've had, both in special education department and in admin roles, were like all about the kids, but they were all about us. They poured it into us. They took things off our plates. They cared. You could tell they didn't just say it, right? Because let me be honest with you, love is a verb. And so you can tell someone you love them or you can show them you love them, but you need to do both if you really love them. And so showing people that love is important. Then there were folks that came in, instituted a whole bunch of change. We don't even know what they cared about except for looking good. So they had all these new plans in place that were to make them look like they were doing a job. So it was like a whole lot of rules, but like why? And so for instance, I didn't do a lesson plan for 10 years. What we deemed veteran teachers no longer had to do lesson plans in West Philadelphia. You had to have like an outline, you had to have a curriculum guide, all these other things, but you didn't have to do like weekly lesson plans. Because it was decided that no one was looking at those anyway, not in any real way that they could follow up with you. So instead it was decided that like in West Philly, it was like 1 to 3 years after year 3, because most people only stayed 2 years in West Philly. After 3 years, you didn't have to do lesson plans anymore. When a new admin came in, they were like, what do you mean you don't have lesson plans? Of course you have lesson plans. So I asked in a meeting, I said, well, I'm just curious, why have we reinstituted lesson plans? They said, because teachers have to do lesson plans. I said, I understood. In your mind, why do teachers have to do lesson plans? I'm curious as to how you came to this summation. Like, is it a research-based idea, or like, is it best practices? Like, what have you seen? Well, we do it because, listen, Mr. Reynolds, this is why we do lesson plans. We do lesson plans because all teachers do lesson plans. I'm sorry, coming in, like, wait, you just answered with the same thing again, but I'm looking for like a deeper answer. Listen, Mr. Reynolds, if you want to talk about this later, you can come to my office. We can talk about why all teachers have to do lesson plans. Well, I went to the office, I had that meeting, and I was told all teachers have to do lesson plans because all teachers do lesson plans. Bro, what? So it depends on who you're dealing with. Now, look, I'm not by any stretch going to tell you to get yourself in trouble. I just know how I roll, and I realized some of the privilege of whether it's for any number of factors, there might be a level of privilege in which I'm entering into the classroom and dealing with certain individuals as administrators. But either way, if I feel like a lesson, if a rule is really important and it's all about kids, I do it 100%. I will do anything if I feel like it's for students. If I feel like it's just to do it, I don't do it. And not only do I not just don't do it, I push back. And I don't push back in a mean way. I push back with curiosity all the time. And I always start every question, every conversation, every time I'm aggravated about something or angry about something, it is, I'm curious why we're doing this. And then I don't let them off the hook with an easy answer. I really want to know, because in all honesty, if you say we're going to do lesson plans and then you have a really good reason, right? And I'm not asking you to just convince me, but I have to see that what you're doing is really about the students. It's really about us as a school, as a community, as educators on this mission that we're really on. And what you're saying aligns with our school mission. I'm going to do it. And I've been shifted from my disbelief before. So it is, and remember that sometimes admin comes in with 50 ideas and they want to institute all of them at once, and it's not doable. So it's knowing sometimes what are we planning on doing. So sometimes if I'm given a really heavy task 2 weeks, a week before school, and they're like, here's this thing we're asking you to do, I just decide how much of it I can do. And then I make a plan. So if someone says, hey, I noticed that you didn't hand this in or turn this in or do this thing, it's like, I didn't. Here's the things that I did. I literally do not have the capacity for that right now, but I want you to know, here's my plan for starting to institute that. And if you have a better idea, please let me know. And that's been enough to get me out of trouble in the past and keep me, so I'm not freaking out. It will not bring work home. It will not work past the point where my intuition tells me I need to stop, not for anybody. Because my job is not just to have a great classroom, it is to have a great life as well. And that includes taking care of my family. And so if my family is not getting it, if I have 100%, I got to get only 50 to school. I got to be able to bring 50% home so I can love and care for my family the same way.
I just want to add into that, or say it in a way that kind of completes it. You give a why to why you do everything in your classroom, and I don't think that's just for students. It shows that it's important for like the teachers and adults also. It's like, you can't just say because it said so. Like, I just think that's not a good answer ever for anyone. Right, it's a lazy one. You have to have a why. And so the biggest thing for you is like, if there's not an actual why behind what you're asking me to do, that's when you make a pivot.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Welcome. Our next question is coming from Juan, and it's Juan's first time here, so welcome. He is a middle school English teacher.
Awesome.
And his question is, I'm so glad to see that other teachers love what they do. However, as I try to be creative, I get a lot of, this is why all the teachers here hate you. How do you deal with this vibe killer?
Oh, man.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's not a tough one. It's a great.
I know what your answer is going to be, and don't ask me to share it. You give it. I know you. But I think it's a tough one because it's not the answer that everybody wants. Like, there's not a real easy.
Well, I would say that not all the teachers hate you, right? And because a student overheard a teacher say something doesn't mean everyone hates you. And if people were talking about you, it doesn't mean they hate you either. So they might not like something you did. So I know, look, great example is, and I learned this the hard way, when you bring in a DJ, let the other teachers know you're bringing in a DJ, because otherwise it's just annoying to everyone else's class, right? So done. And I shifted that. 2, it is that idea of invite people into your awesome, right? Do I care that Jose behind me has banging parties all the time? And is it annoying because they're up until all hours and they're out there laughing and having a good time? Yes. But would I be less annoyed if Jose had invited me and I was just like, oh no, I can't go because of whatever reason? It doesn't matter what the reason is. And then I at least know that I was invited. I'd probably be less aggravated. I'd be like, man, I really have it out there. Maybe we should finish up early and go over to Jose's place. So, and that's the truth. He lives behind me and he has banger parties all the time. They sound like they have the greatest time in the world. And he doesn't invite me. So yeah, I'll work on that. So the other thing is, you can't let that stop you. And here's why. You're not, just like I just said, you're not doing the work. You're not having awesome classes just for you.
is it nice to get love? Is it nice for parents to come in and tell you that you're their kid's favorite teacher, for a kid to tell you they're their favorite teacher, to meet up with a kid 10 years later that's like, Reynolds, your class literally changed my life, or when we did this, it was the best thing ever, when we had this conversation, or the way you made me feel every day was like changed who I was. I've had countless moments like that. That's not why I do it. I do it because I want kids to succeed. And if my effort in trying to help young people succeed intimidates you, then you need to rethink what you're doing, because I'm also not trying to have a competition. That's not completely true all the time. There are certain teachers I do have friendly competitions with sometimes, where I tell kids, they're like when Cho used to talk trash on me, and I'd be like, yo, just tell Cho to shut up because my class is better than hers. Like what you doing in there today? Quietly read, like not even with her. And so I would dog her all the time for that stuff, and it was fun. But it is, it's creating a community where other people are going to want to have fun. So the way you get around that is by, one, inviting people into your awesome. Two, inviting people out, having people over, inviting people over to your class, over to your house, right? So one of the things I did with Cho was start having her come over to the house all the time. First time she came to my house was, and I have to make it weird. I don't even know why I'm telling this story. Cho didn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving. Her mom and family are from California.
That wasn't the first time she.
That wasn't the first time she came over?
No.
It was up there. You don't think it was one of the first times?
No, it wasn't one of the first times, because we had already built a relationship when you were just.
She didn't know me that well if she did
I
this.
guess.
Because what did she do?
The time that you made her dress up like a.
I told her on Thanksgiving that you can come over to our house, but our family has a tradition of dressing up like pilgrims at Thanksgiving. And then I gave her a bonnet, and she wore it to my house. I have a secret picture of this somewhere. And she was very angry when she came in. My grandmother was like, "Hi, how are you?" Like, "Oh, my name's Dolores. Why are you wearing that on your head?" And she was like, "Well, Reynolds told me that his family dressed like pilgrims." And she's like, "He's an idiot. We don't dress like." She didn't say I was an idiot. She said something meaner.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say.
So, yeah, don't give up on doing what you're doing. And that's the beauty of Sunday Night Teacher Talk and of our Facebook group and of this community, is that that's what I'm talking about. I talk like-minded individuals are people that are not I'm not going to be scared about staying away from being awesome, right? On any level. And I'm not even just saying that I'm that awesome. I think I do things a little bit different, and that gets me a big ROI, but it's not like huge changes. And so just keep being that person, and because it's for your students. That's why I'm showing up and doing this.
That's a great answer, but that's not what I thought you were going to
Oh,
say.
okay.
I thought you were
So
going to
look, I tricked you into giving the answer anyway.
Well, I don't mind giving it like secondary, but
Okay.
I'm not the one being actually asked. I would say it's also about you developing you to be able to take that offense, because people are always going to criticize what you do. And so you really have to work on you, kind of like, I guess for lack of a better word, building a tough skin to not care. But the reason that you're not caring is because you're doing it for your students, right? And what you want to bring to your classroom. So I think it's about like really just working on you also, so you can take that criticism and not let it bother you.
You know what? Real quick, our pastor talks about this idea there's a backside to every blessing. So if you want to be the best, there's going to be pushback on there's a darker side to that, right? If you want to be if you end up being the most popular teacher, the most effective teacher,
your classroom's always crowded, and
Yeah.
you have people there all the time,
Yes.
and you can't get your things done, right? You don't have your prep times aren't yours because people want to be with you and around you.
You
and
don't
so,
get one without the other. So we have to build up to be the person that we need to be to be the teacher that we dreamed of being as well.
Yeah. Okay, Carl is up
That's good.
next. Oh, thank you.
How great though! I just love seeing us both on here. Instead of just your hand coming
I
out. of nowhere.
know. It forces me to shower every Sunday now instead of just do housework. Usually
There you go.
Sunday's like my
Real
housework
rap
day.
right there. That's what that is. Go ahead.
All right, Carl's asking, have you ever considered recording one of your seminars so that us over the pond could watch? Also, Dave Burgess needs to do the same.
So, but there's a reason that folks don't do that, because here's the real reality of it, Carl. And I'm going to tell you what we're doing to counteract that. But when you're getting paid to go do a talk, right? You're not paying me. I heard someone say this recently. They said, you're not paying me for my time or my expertise or anything like that, or my information. You're paying me to be away from my family. And so I have to make money for my family. And so if I record that, what happens, and I've heard this from countless people, that my videos on YouTube get used in college classes, they get used as beginning of the year.
Professional development,
professional
people use them all the time.
New teacher orientation, things of this nature, right? So instead of paying me to have to come in and to actually lead, not just talk, but like lead a professional development session, those sorts of things aren't happening because folks are figuring out a free way to do it. And I can understand that. I've realized that, like, in education, we dream on a budget. I know why that's happening. But if I were to record full keynotes and put them out there, then that just exists. And then there's no reason really for people to have me, unless you really have the money to have me come and speak. So the way we've tried to get around that, right? Because Burgess is, and I'll tell you what, if anyone has had the opportunity to see Dave Burgess speak, bar none, my favorite educational speaker, one of my favorite speakers I've ever seen. No, like, and that's not because I know him. It's not because he's my publisher. Just unbelievable, unmatched. No one else even comes close to him in my opinion. That being said, that's why we try to create as many workshops as we can, so that we can go deep into a specific area to create something that is available to people all over the world. So, for instance, this week you'll hear the announcement about it, but we're doing a back-to-school boot camp again. We did one last year. This is going to be far more interactive. It's going to be not 2 days, but 4 days. It's going to go way deeper into what we did last year. So, the content is very much the same, because I'm not going to, like, how you build relationships, how you run classroom management, how you run classroom management. But I have not in the past gone so deep on things like, how do I create procedures? How do I decide what is going to be a procedure or a routine? What's the difference between a procedure, a routine, and a rule? Because I only have one rule. I don't have a whole bunch of rules. So we are trying to create opportunities like that for educators, that if your school doesn't want to have me come and speak, they will pay for you to attend something like this, and then you are still getting that opportunity. And I will say this, dude, I will speak anywhere in the world. So if your school is interested, let's have that conversation. Like, I realize that it's a check to have someone fly over to a country, but if I can come over and get, here's how I roll. If I have a speaking gig, I'm not even gonna put them on blast because I don't want to figure out how to talk about it. So we'll just say, I'll make one up. If I had a speaking engagement in South Dakota, there's not a direct flight from Philly to South Dakota. So it's taking a lot of things. It's more expensive. But when I get there, my hope is, can I get a number of jobs there? So now I'm breaking up some of this cost so that schools are actually paying less money because I have more jobs in a given area. So if I'm coming over to England or Spain or wherever folks are located, it's, can we figure out a way, or can I figure out a way to just, like, break that cost up so that it's doable for people? Because I really want to show up and love people in their face.
So Carl, he said, was thinking a paid service. So if it's like he went to Get Your Teach On, right? Like, that's not recorded, and they specifically say, like, don't record anybody's session because it's people's intellectual property and they get paid to speak. And that part of that is, like, that's how they make an income. But if it's a workshop like we are doing online, that you get the recording of.
Yes.
And we ask people not to share it online, and no one ever has, but you would be able to attend those because even if you can't attend it live, you get the recording afterwards. So something like that would still work for you. Just wanted to clarify.
And we try to create other opportunities within that too. Like, so part of something, I'm going to let this cat out of the bag a little bit. We're planning something to come out before the end of September at least, where there's going to be a group mentoring component to it, where folks that sign up for a certain level of the program will meet bi-weekly with me as a group
So we will have this really niche community of folks that are really trying to get after it, and really have like the class that they always dreamed about, the class that their students deserve, this really close niche group that we will figure out a time that works for everyone, so that we can make sure that everyone is getting that live component as well, and that face-to-face time. And the reason we're doing that is because I've been in a group for the last 2 years like that, and man,
They're awesome.
it is when when Jim Rohn says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with in any capacity, man, it levels you up like nothing else, and it has been incredible. So that is coming soon.
All right, let's do a few more questions.
Let's do it.
We're over an hour. Nelson is up
Because
next.
we got through like 6 questions.
I
already.
know, but that's what you always do. Okay, Nelson is asking, subjects as arts and music are often not taken seriously by many students and or parents. Any suggestions on how to tackle that problem as a beginning arts and music teacher at a new school?
Do. So it is, was it Nelson?
Yes.
I'm saying it right? Nelson. This means that you have to, are you gonna switch the camera?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Otherwise, it just looked like Reynolds had Nelson was over here somewhere. And I was talking to him. So it is, I hear what you're saying. Taught an elective for, probably close to a decade, called The History of Hip Hop, which I thought everyone was just gonna love. Turns out parents don't care if their kids fail the history of hip hop, right? It's just like, who cares? It's just an elective. It's not. And what I'm going to do is shift your thinking on that. I need to figure out why this is important, right? Like everything else. And it can't just be, you need to think of the regular answers that most I hate air quotes, but it's the only way I can figure out to do it. Most elective teachers give, right? Like, we want a well-rounded education. We want students to be able to use their creative side. This is really important for some students. Well, that doesn't mean it's important for all students. So figuring out whether it's the research of how that creative component is going to become important. I talk to my students all the time about, in the last couple of years, it was talking about what jobs make the most money. So folks that trade their time for money there's a bracket of like between this amount of income and this amount of income, right? But it's the lowest bracket. So if you are simply going to a job, checking in, leaving, checking out when you're done, you get paid for those hours. That's the lowest amount of money that you'll make. And then I walk them through, there's a number of different steps. The number one answer, the people that make the most money in the world are creative thinkers, are people that can solve problems and do it creatively. And so we need to exercise that muscle. We need students to be able to tap into that and not just sit here like a lump and fill in circles or answer comprehension questions. I need you to be able to think outside of the box. I need you to be able to look at a problem and not get discouraged, but look at it, see it as an opportunity. I need you to be able to learn how to begin to grow into the person that you need to be to live the life you most want to live. Now, look, even if you're trading your time for money, right? And because there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like for folks that you have a job that you are an electrician, you're a plumber, and you don't own your own business, you're working for someone, maybe that's exactly what you want to do, fine. There's going to be a problem where you're going to sit there and look at whether it's a junction box or how something's wired or how you need to run a piece of wire. You need to be able to tap into that creative piece. So that's why this is important. And so that's just a really flimsy example maybe, but like I didn't really give it. I mean, I know that that's all true, but it's not something that like I would want to research a little bit more to be able to present with a parent. It's knowing why and how this is important. And then that's what you're telling students. That's what you're telling parents. That's how you're communicating this. This is not just about art. This isn't about painting. This isn't about shading or drawing or any of that stuff, right? This is for some kids it is, but these are the bigger skills we're not thinking about. Why is reading, when I have parents all the time that tell me their kid hates to write, right? But he's not going to write anything for you. He hates writing. Well, that's fine. But what I'm telling you is that my students need to know that their story is important.
And I need you to be able to tell your story without getting caught up on language, with using lazy vocabulary. I want the world to know exactly what you're saying and how you're trying to say it, and being able to communicate that so clearly with a vocabulary that's so high that everyone will stand in awe when you're telling your story. I need you to get to know your story so well and understand that you're important, that your story is important, that we're going to practice it every single day. We're not just going to write sometimes. You write every day. You're going to write about yourself every day. Then I'm going to ask you to stand up and speak it confidently to the world. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So this isn't about writing. This isn't about the SAT. This isn't about, being able to write a 5-paragraph essay, right? It is the bigger thing that is important here. That's why we're doing it. You think we're just doing this, but we're not just doing this. This is cross-training for life, bro. And that's what I try to communicate to students. And when I can attach that strong why, try and tell me that art's not important, bro, or music's not important, or ceramics isn't important, or home ec's not important. It's not even about that. It's about this something that's so much bigger.
I love it. It goes back to the why, right? It's
Yes.
so important. All right, John Fox is up next asking, thoughts on a weekly to-do list versus a daily one, or both? What works better for you and why? You like this question.
I do love this question. John, I use a platform called Trello, and I'm not affiliated with them, although I should be. I talk about them enough. And here's why I like Trello. On Trello, I can create long-term to-do lists. So it's just stuff that, like, someday, some way, I'm going to get to this, but it's not important right now. It is the to-do list. Then there's the doing today, like what has to get done today, and then a done list. And I even adopted a working on list, just so I can see, like, these are things that are already in motion. But the reason I like this is because I can take things from to do to done, and that gives me a deep sense of satisfaction. There is a lot of research done on to-do lists, and when you cross things off, how satisfying that is, what it does for your production and for your self-esteem and all these other kind of markers. I need a long-term to-do list because I have to have a vision. I don't want your brain. Here's what I've been taught by mentors. Your brain is not for storing information. It is for creative thinking. It's for coming up with ideas. It is for processing stuff. But I don't want to store things there. I want to get them out. I store them somewhere else. And then I need a today list that I bounce off someone else. So for me, it's my wife to say, here's 10 things I'm going to get done today. And she goes, here's 3 things you're actually going to get done today. And that is really important to me because I forget all the time, or I think I can get more done. And I forget that I have kids. I forget that things take a long time to be able to do. Like that resource for this new video we just put out, we gave away a free resource. 3 days, John, 3 days it took me sitting in front of the computer just to figure out how to give that away for free, right? I had to like pay for a service. I had to pay for someone to help me make the resource.
Well,
like,
to be fair, we are not the best when it comes to like tech stuff always, especially
on the front
in the email marketing.
It's not intuitive to us.
Yes.
But it takes a long time to learn, but then once we learn how to do it, we're better. But I need someone to tell me you're not going to get all those done because I know your capacity. You're going to get these 3 things done. And that really helps me a lot. But I do it like crazy. And like I talked to you about before, I think I have a tracker on my phone for things that I know if I do these things every single day, I will have a better day just by doing them. And so I keep a track every day of things like, did I drink? Did I pray? Did I exercise? Did I spend time with my kids? And a bunch of other stuff that I know if I do it every day, I'm going to have a better day.
Yeah. So if you want that, that's what is just called Habit Tracker.
Habit Share.
Habit Share.
Yeah.
And the other one is Trello. But I'll say that I don't love Trello because I don't work like that. But I do like that you can label your own things, different things. Like, so if you want to do, this is due in 2 weeks, this is due in 1 week, this is today, like however you want to set it up, you can do that. We can end if you'd like. There's always more questions.
Do one more.
All right.
No one has to, it's not like we're like, folks are like, it's not like church where they're just like, oh my gosh.
You're not locked in. You
talking one more song, I gotta leave, I'm starving.
James is asking, I am starting my first year of teaching at a middle school in a small agricultural town that I never knew existed until I was offered this job. How do I gain my students' acceptance?
Man, this is a great question, James. You gain students' acceptance by learning, by having zero, not pretending to have any zero, like, how do I want to say this? When I started teaching in West Philadelphia, there are a lot of assumptions I see teachers make, right? So if someone comes in to do a model lesson, right, before they get the job, it's part of the interview process. 9 times out of 10, right? I didn't notice this when my students pointed out to me. Folks talk about, so it's all Black boys in West Philadelphia. Every lesson is about sports or hip hop. And I just didn't realize that. And when I was talking to my kids about this, they were like, but what they don't realize is that, like, one, they just think that it's like Black males that are into sports and hip hop. And how can they come in with something cool instead of realizing that they don't even know who we are? They don't know what we're about. They don't know what we find is important. And so what I would do is, I think the biggest piece of advice is go into whatever community you're about to teach in and start to learn what's important. What are the values? What are people doing for a living? How are they? What's important to them? Where do they go when they're not working? Where are community gathering places? So I tell folks all the time, if you have it in you to do it, the best place to kind of really get to know folks and see what people's values are, what the hot button topics of the day are visit a church or a barbershop, because that is going to be, those are the meeting places a lot of times in West Philadelphia that are places you can show up and get connected. So it's asking parents what they want for their child, what they think is important with regards to their child's education. It's, if there's small agricultural town, is 4-H putting something on? Is there, I mean, and this is a little bit stereotypical, but like, is there a rodeo happening? Are there birthday parties or in Philly, it's like going to a block party and a bunch of students are going to be there and stuff, and then I'm meeting their parents and stuff, and I'm out of the classroom, and if you're invited to something, go to everything, right? You can never say no to an invitation. There's been a couple times it got a little weird. I've been invited to some some christenings for babies when your student is. It just got a little weird. We're just going to leave it there. So it's making no assumptions about the community you're going to teach in, but going in eager to learn as much as possible, the history of the town, what's the college acceptance rate, gathering as much data as you can so you have as clear image as possible on who your students are. Because when you do that, now you're teaching who's actually in front of you and not just who you thought was in front of you. And that's going to make all the difference in the world, because people don't care what you know until they know that you care. That's a bumper sticker, but it's 100% on point.
All right, I agree.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right, gang. So listen, this week, there's going to be an announcement coming out. So one, if you haven't watched the video from yesterday, is there, even if you don't want to watch the video, there's a free resource for you underneath. It's just your name and your email address. I was trying to keep bots out of this, but then that's going to let us alert you to other things that are happening. The other thing is there's a back to school boot camp coming up. It will be announced this week. It is 4 days long this year instead of just 2 days long. And even if you've already started school or school will have started by the time we start this, I am guaranteeing you that it's for you. I'm gonna.
Oh man, this one always makes me hurt that face. You say what you're gonna say.
This is when I half jumped out of the car while I was moving, and I'm like, wait, I don't know if I should have done that. Did we do money back guarantee last year? I'm not trying to hold anyone or trick anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we said that, but if it really sucked and you hated
something
it, like,
and it
gosh,
sucks,
email us, I'll give you your money back.
Be like, Reynolds, that was garbage. Like, I got you. But we really want to put on something that I wish existed when I first started teaching. That even when I had been teaching for years, best practices, things I wish I had known, ways to connect with students, ways to connect with kids care about, like all this stuff that is coming this week. And if you need anything else, go to realrapwithreynolds.com and keep an eye on that thing, man. It's going to be
that's getting a whole new
sexy
look
new
soon,
website
too.
coming up. Whoo, man.
It's gonna be nice.
Yeah, and if you want, join the Facebook group. It's there. It's a really great place, and I just love all the people in there. They
It's the
ask
best
great
Facebook group for
questions, and you
educators.
get great, like, actual real help.
Yeah.
And so you just have to answer 3 questions before you get in. You cannot put yes, yes, yes to all of them or something like that. You actually have to answer them to get into the
And
group.
that's also
But
just so we know who's coming in too.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that there's not like,
we want to keep it to teachers, and we don't want people in there throwing up personal promotions and things of that nature. So it's a really great usable space for you.
that's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you know what to do? At the
No,
bottom?
you have to
All
do
right,
it.
So you gotta scroll down here, right? And then you see that one, and
Oh,
then we
yeah.
just go like this. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Peace.
Peace.